Welcome to JGTCR. I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Ford Mustang Mach 1. Let's get into it. This is a very tidy vehicle to drive in factory trim. It drives well, especially considering its age. It does have its limitations, but it is a pleasurable experience. The handling is surprisingly capable of some decent maneuvers on track, and it's quite nimble. The steering is fairly sharp if we are reasonable with our inputs. However, it does become quite dull once we start pushing, especially if we are heavy-handed while doing so. The power comes on strong and hauls this Ford to pace quickly, but it does run out of legs up top due to the gearing. We will spend most of our time in fourth gear, dropping down to third on some turns so we can get some extra pace out of those corners. The power delivery is raw and aggressive, so some throttle modulation goes a long way in maintaining traction and control. The brakes are great. They work extremely well and keep this Ford stable as it slows down. Again, this is surprising considering the age of this vehicle. Let's collect our time. "8 minutes, 40 seconds flat." And now the race tune. It's faster, but not easier to drive. It's a wrestle to maintain traction and lay down solid times in this Ford after modification. The handling is fairly good, but the front end does have some float to it and a touch of understeer when the rear hooks. The steering has been dulled down a bit for the sake of traction. However, it does work well enough once we get used to how it moves on track. The power is a bit more than double the factory output, and with it comes the extra torque and traction loss issues. The power delivery can be reasonable if we are mildly cautious on throttle. When traction loss occurs, it is likely to step the tail out hard, so stay on top of traction loss and all is well. The brakes are still great, stable and solid all the way, no issues whatsoever at all. Let's collect our time. "6 minutes, 33.7 seconds. Moving on to the drift tune. This Ford is a whale of a car that can be drifted extremely well with a smooth and calculated drift, or be hammered on hard and thrown into turns. It's really the dealer's choice. The handling is very boaty in nature and will give us the sensation that we are floating, but it's more than controllable and fun to boot. The steering can be cumbersome to begin with, but once we get a feel for the car, it's quite nice to throw into turns. The power is raw old school muscle. It has a brute force feeling that does not let up. The power delivery is reasonable and can be pushed hard, but it has its limits, especially if we abuse the higher RPM range. As far as old school muscle drift cars go, this one is definitely towards the top of the stack. And now it's time to do an engine swap. After the engine swap, this is more like what we would expect as a factory drive from this vehicle. It is super slide happy, torquey, and lurches all over the place as it makes its way around the track. The handling is now very sloppy. It breaks traction everywhere, causing the tail to kick, and the front end likes to plow not only on throttle but also on brakes. The steering is rife with understeer if we are not delicate with our inputs. The power is very crisp and attentive. Unfortunately, it gets lost in the driveline's translation and comes out as wheel spin. The power delivery is aggressive, so it's best to stay in 4th gear and drive it like it's an automatic. But if we are after those thrills at slower pace, dropping to 3rd gear gives us a decent serving of slides and countersteer moments. The brakes work, but only in straight lines. It understeers quite a bit, so use caution going into turns. Let's collect our time. 8 minutes, 17.4 seconds. And now, our race tune. We now have a much more pleasant vehicle to drive after tuning and upgrades. The balance has been restored to this Ford, and we have unleashed the potential hidden in this swap. The handling is very stable, albeit a touch on the lazy side. We have once again chosen to sacrifice some of our steering for traction. The steering is sharp enough to get the job done, but most importantly, it is solid and difficult to unsettle. The power has been brought into line with our tune, in particular the gearing being stretched out. The power delivery is still aggressive, but nowhere near as bad as it once was. We now have all the control we need underfoot. We just need to regulate it properly to slash away at our lap times. The brakes are once again extremely solid and stable in all conditions. There are no issues to report. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes, 29.9 seconds. Moving on to the drift tune. The drift setup for this Mustang with the engine swap is very similar to the factory engine tune. However, it does have a lot more grunt and wants us to use it surgically and not just smash away at it with a sledgehammer. The steering is solid and stable, but it does have some jitteriness to it. It is easily affected under full load from the engine, making the front end seem dull. The power has been subdued by the gearing, but it still gets erratic up top as the engine is Peaky Blinders in nature. The power delivery is aggressive but can be controlled with some good throttle management. The tail end does like to keep coming around at higher RPM, and also the front wheels lock in if wheel speed gets too high. We need to stay below 9,000 RPM for the best control under drift conditions. This Ford Mustang Mach 1 is a golden oldies drifter with a new age twist. It is recommended for intermediate drifters and above. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!